Hey, Facebook family. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Um, how are you? Listen, family, Facebook, and others. YouTube subbies, what's up? Listen, I'm running a little tardy today, but I'm getting messages from my Facebook family saying, "What's up?" It's 5 o'clock on Wednesday, Sergeant Dorsey. Where are you? So I'm here. I'm here. Welcome. Hey, Jakia, welcome. That's really sweet of you to join me. I'm really happy about that, sister girl. I appreciate you. I'm here, you guys, and listen, today, I don't know, I can't call it, but I'm just having a hard time. Hold on, let me take care of my house cleaning stuff. I'm having a hard time getting going today because there is so much in the news right now that is really unsettling to me. And every now and again, and I think I'm gonna have to just take like a mental health break. It is so much going on in the news with regards to police, use of deadly force, the disrespect that they have for us as a people, how willing they continue to show us day in and day out, week in and week out, that our lives mean nothing to them. It's taxing, you guys. And listen, even a warrior queen, hey, Joseph, even a warrior queen has her moments. And so right now, I am just full. I feel like I come to you guys every week and I bring no good news. Is how I feel right now. I feel like I bring you nothing but just death, destruction, and despair. And right now, it's weighing on me. And apparently, it's making my nose run. Hey, David. Hey, Carl. Hey, Ken. Thanks for joining me. There's a lot going on in the news, and I'm gonna just have to kind of take my time and pace myself so that my motherboard doesn't short circuit. I don't even know where to begin, you guys, but let's do this. Let's everybody share this on your timeline so that other people can hear what it is we're going to be talking about this week. And listen, do me a favor when you come on. If you haven't already, like my page, Sergeant Dorsey Speaks, like my Facebook page, Retired LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey. And for my YouTube subbies, please be sure to like this podcast and subscribe. You guys know yesterday was Tuesday, right? Because that's the day before Wednesday. So yesterday, Tuesday, my podcast dropped. And as I do every Tuesday, new content, Sergeant Dorsey Speaks on the podcast platform of your choice. So I need you to slide over there as well and just subscribe if you haven't already. I'm assuming that most of you are compliant because isn't that what I preach and teach, right? Comply. I'm not going to say complain. I just need you to comply. So I need you to comply with my wishes and subscribe to my podcast if you would. And as everybody is starting to come on, I'm going to just give a second or two as I stall, if you will, while I'm sharing this and lining up my stories that I want to share with you. But yeah, Joseph, I'm going to talk about the police officer that shot the woman in Texas as one of the stories that we'll be covering today. I've had some folks, Don, my YouTube subby, appreciate you, sister girl, for constantly sharing and commenting with me via email regarding things that are in the news. And so, Don, I'm going to be talking about that story that you had inquired about. But I want to say this, listen, on my podcast, and I'm not going to go over the stories that I talked about on my podcast, but what I am going to tell you is this, because this is what I said on my podcast. There's some states where people who look like me need to be really, really careful. And now I'm going to have to add to the list, the growing list, that I referenced on my podcast. I'm going to have to add Texas. I'm going to have to add Texas to the list of places where people who look like me need to be really, really careful. But before I talk about Texas, let me touch base on this story that was circulating last week, and I know I'm a little late, but I don't often come to you midweek when things jump off because that's not what I do. But there's that video that was circulating last week about the lady in Montana, and I don't know her name, but it was a viral video, and I've seen a lot of chatter because the police officers, and I will share that with you, police officers showed up at her home, and I think what happened, the way I'm understanding it, is that her front door was open, and the police just happened to show up, right? And when they showed up, because her door was open, they just walked in. Yikes. Okay, can't do that while I'm talking. I can't get on my phone and share with you while I'm on my computer because there's feedback. But anyway, listen, so this lady in Montana, sister girl in Montana, police showed up at her house, just walked in because they said they thought they heard some kind of commotion, and they were, being good police officers and wanted to see what was going on, and they walked in. And so she just, she did what, you would expect a Black woman to do, given the climate that we live in. And while everything turned out okay for her, what I want, folks to hear from me is that she was very lucky, in my opinion. And listen, I don't suggest that you try that at home because it could have gone all bad, you guys. We have seen officers who feel some kind of way when they think that their authority is being questioned, or when we're not compliant, or when we get a little too loud for their liking, right? We've seen what happens when police officers find you guilty of what I term contempt of cop. They punish you, and it generally ends badly. So thankfully, this young woman, the officers just backed out. But it could have gone really, really bad. And I don't want to encourage, and I hope she doesn't feel encouraged to do that foolishness again, because you never know which police officer you are getting in the bag when you reach in and pull one out. You don't know if you're getting Daniel Pantaleo over in New York. We'll talk about him in a minute, because right now he's facing an administrative hearing with regards to the choking death of Eric Garner, because Eric Garner didn't comply, according to them. Sam DuBose, Michael Brown, Sandra Bland, right? There's a new video out from her cell phone that shows that, the officer made some assertions about what she was doing because she wasn't compliant, because she didn't put the cigarette out, because she was asking questions, answering questions that he was asking as well. And it ended very badly. And so please don't be encouraged by what that lady in Montana did and think that you could do that wholesale and that everything will be all good, because if you wind up with a Brian Encinia, as did Sandra Bland, or Darren Wilson, or any name of a gazillion officers I could share with you, it could end very badly. It may not necessarily always end in death, but it certainly could end in great bodily harm to you. And so that's not anything to play with. It worked that time. Please, children, do not try that at home, okay? Now, on to Texas. A lot going on in Texas. And listen, Texas is a big state, and so I guess there's a lot of territory for foolishness. Right now, we've seen this viral video of the police officer who was being very aggressive with this female who he said had a warrant, and talking about the Baytown Police Department in Texas. A female by the name of Pamela Turner, who is reported to be mentally ill, suffers from mental illness, and the officer seemed to have had a relationship with her. There seemed to have been some history, and he knew she had a warrant. So I don't know what the warrant was for. I don't know if it was for a minor infraction, like a ticket that didn't get paid and went to warrant, or if it was some other, serious crime. There was a warrant issued for her arrest. I don't know, but nonetheless, the officer knew. So that means the officer probably knew where she lived. It was reported. I read that, they were neighbors. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what was reported. And so what was the urgency in this officer taking this woman, Pamela Turner, into custody right now, as soon as he saw her? What was the urgency? There was none. And so this officer created a situation like many police officers do to exacerbate a tense encounter, create a reason to use force. And in this instance, he first used a taser on her, and then he escalated that encounter to deadly force, and he shot the woman 5 times. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. It's excessive. And we heard the woman just before he fired those 5 shots, we heard her say that she was pregnant. Now, I don't know if she was pregnant. If she's mentally ill, maybe that was just something that she blurted out. I don't know. But that doesn't negate the fact that she didn't deserve to die, whether she was pregnant or whether she had a warrant out for murder. I gotta wipe my nose, you guys, excuse me. Whether she had a warrant out for arrest warrant out for murder, she didn't deserve to die. And so thankfully, there was a bystander who was recording the incident. And now, we have spin, because that's what police departments do when they send out their spokesman. In this case, they sent out a lieutenant by the name of Steve Doris, who said that the woman and the officer had prior encounters, right? So that means there was a history. He knew her, she knew him. And we'll see if they're going to stand by their man. We'll see if they're going to try to justify this use of deadly force. And so what I'm asking you to do, as are my friends there in Texas who are involved on the ground, if you will, and I'm speaking specifically right now with regards to the Next Generation Action Network, Dominique Alexander. I saw that he had posted some numbers of folks that you can contact, and so I'm going to share this with you as well, because this is a call to action. Doesn't do us any good week to week, incident to incident, to get all hot and bothered and cuss and fuss and then not take any action, not ask, not demand that something be done substantively with this officer. And I'm not talking about a slap on the hand. We need to have this officer, and listen, I get he's deserving of due process. There's protocols, and so, but it needs to be swift, and it needs to be definitive in terms of how they adjudicate this administrative hearing. And ultimately, we know that there'll be a civil lawsuit. So I'm requesting that you call the Harris County DA, and their telephone number is 713-274-5800. Also there in Texas, the district attorney, Kim Ogg, OGG. Contact Kim Ogg and call the Baytown Police Department and leave a message with Police Chief C. Keith Doherty. Ooh-wee. I don't know what this is all about, you guys. This is extra bad. This is extra bad today. I don't know if it's allergies. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, the Baytown Police Department Chief Doherty, 281 area code 422-8371. And listen, remember, I always tell you, and I'm not gonna, be sending you any links to this right now, but do your own due diligence. Find the website, find the Twitter account, because I promise you they have one. And hey, Roderick, and reach out to the police chief and let them know, hey, you know what? We're gonna be no more than just mad about this one. We're going to demand, and we're going to keep an eye out, and we're going to insist that we stand with the family of Pamela Turner and make sure that they do the right thing over there in Dallas. Or I'm sorry, it's a suburb of Houston, I believe, where Pamela Turner was shot and killed, Baytown. So anyway, please do that. Please take a moment. Costs you nothing. It's just a little bit of time for you to reach out over there and contact those officials whose information I just gave you. And you can please share this on your timeline so that other people will hear this call to action and will also do the same thing. Now, in another part of Texas, there's another video that's gone viral. And this particular video shows officials from Precinct 4. And these officers were attempting to apprehend someone named Clarence Evans. This is the black man who was in his own front yard, I believe. He was in his own front yard, and officers approached him because they said that he looked like some suspect. who just happened to be a black man with dreads. And, this man was not a young man, but anyway, this man was frightened because he's in his home. In his yard. He's playing with his children, I believe, when the officers approached him. And that video too is going viral now. And of course, the police benevolent association, or whatever they call their union out there, they are standing in support of this officer. And what they are saying is that the officer was on official business based on a report. Ooh, we double talk, company speak. Based on a report of a wanted fugitive near that location. And so they determined that this man, once they determined that this man was not the suspect, they left. So in the mind of the police union, no harm, no foul, because they left him intact. They didn't get a chance to kill this one. So that's where they're coming from with regards to Charles Evans over in Precinct 4 in Texas. Now, again, thankfully, things went well, but we know too many times, things go sideways. And so Mr. Evans, was asked to show his ID and he didn't. And there's a law in Texas that says you don't have to if you're not driving a car. Thankfully, he wasn't hurt for not showing his ID. I get that, he was probably really put off by all of that, but yeah, be careful when you when you know your rights and when you assert them. Just be very, very careful, because things can go bad really quickly. The president of the Houston Police Officers Association, his name is Joe Gamaldi, and he is the one who was saying that the deputy, who's been identified as Garrett Lindley, was not racially profiling Mr. Evans, and that the officer was actually, just doing his job, and a mighty good one at that. So that officer has the support of the unions. They're very powerful. I talk about that all the time, much like our, even though they call them unions, they're not unions in the true sense of the word, like, the plumbers union or other unions. But these are the associations that police officers look to, when they're cutting up and when they want support. And these same unions pay a lot of money to political campaigns, and sometimes you have politicians who look the other way because of that. So here in LA, I told you on last week, I had gone to participate in a public service announcement for AB 392, and I'll just share, it's up on YouTube. There's a couple of different versions, and they did a really good job. Kendrick Sampson, thanks so much for including me in that very important project. And I'm going to share with you, as I have already put up on my 2 other pages, the link to this PSA for AB 392. But what's also included in this AB 392 link that I'm going to share with you is a link for the ACLU, and it also provides the names of the administrators, assembly people, assembly women, assembly men, who are responsible for voting on this AB 392. And listen, last night I shared some pictures because I was in Pasadena speaking on AB 392. And there's a very important hurdle that they have to pass next week. So for those of you who are locally in California, I need you to contact your assembly people, and I'll share some information with you a little bit later on in the text regarding this particular amendment. And I will tell you who and where you need to reach out to, because there's a couple of people that are, I guess, still on the fence. I'm sorry, I'm trying to multitask here, bear with me. And there's a couple of legislators that are still on the fence right now. And so it's important that you contact them between now and next week, because I think it's going to be voted by the full assembly, is the way I heard it being talked about last night. And to that end, this public service announcement that Kendrick Sampson and Mike De La Roca over at Revolve Impact put together. Build Power is the movement. BLDPWR PWR is the movement that Kendrick Sampson is behind, and they have this very moving, very powerful PSA that's on YouTube, and so I'm sharing that with you as well. But it's really important to get this amendment, get this legislation passed, this assembly bill passed, because AB 392, for those of you who may be hearing of it for the first time, requires officers to de-escalate uses of force when possible. Nobody's trying to get anybody hurt. Nobody's trying to get a police officer hurt. But if you have an opportunity to de-escalate a situation, then you should. And if officers don't de-escalate, if they just jump right to deadly force like we see them doing, then there's a price to pay. And this assembly bill is a great first step. It's not the end all be all. I say that all the time, but it's a great first step. We must do something, because surely if we do nothing, we're going to get more of the same. And I'm a firm believer that silence is agreement, and you can't change what you tolerate. So please do, if you live in California, get involved. Contact your assembly person for AB 392. Very important step next week being voted. Very important vote that's going to happen. Now, I mentioned this earlier, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on the NYPD with regards to Eric Garner. You know, the officer who choked him to death, and he did choke him to death. His name is Daniel Pantaleo. He is in the midst of an administrative hearing right now in New York, and I'm expecting that this thing is going to end much like the criminal situation. In other words, nothing is going to happen. It's been, what, 4 or 5 years? That happened in 2014, so 5 years ago. This officer, Pantaleo, is still on the force. He's not in the field. He's working the desk. He doesn't have his gun, so he's inside. But listen, it was reported he makes like $120,000 a year. So shoot, that's not a bad gig to have. $120,000 a year, and all you have to do is sit in the office and move paper clips around and answer phones. I don't think anything is going to happen at the end of this administrative hearing. The New York Police Department Chief Surgeon has previously been reported in the news as having said that Eric Garner did not die from being choked. As a matter of fact, he says he wasn't choked, that Eric Garner died because of his health issues. And I'm sure that this is going to be the same representation that they will be putting before their board this week with regards to whether or not Daniel Pantaleo gets to keep his job. He will not be retried. That's already happened. A grand jury decided not to indict him, and so he cannot be charged twice. That would be double jeopardy if that were to happen. And, the family has already settled with a civil suit, so that's a wrap. So personally, I really don't see anything other than them saying, okay, well, it's been 5 years. He's been on the job. He's been a model officer or whatever the heck he's doing inside. I'm sure that their Police Benevolent Officers Association is going to circle the wagons tightly around him. And so do not be disappointed. Do not lose your mind when Daniel Pantaleo on the New York Police Department keeps his job at the end of this administrative hearing. I am just not believing that they are going to do anything to him. So that's that. Here in Los Angeles, someone shared with me, and thank you for sharing this story with me regarding LA County Sheriff's Department. I guess back in 2018, February 2018, deputies shot a young man by the name of Anthony Weber. And so that family has just settled, and the Board of Supervisors on yesterday approved a $3.7 million settlement to the family of Daniel Weber. I believe he was 15. Oh no, he was 16 years old when he was shot and killed. And so that has finally worked its way through the system and has resolved itself. And there is a, I'll see if I can share this with you. There is a story relative to that particular settlement. Didn't make the news. This is the first I'm hearing of it. If it did, it wasn't widely reported. I'm not knowing the story, but I did do a little research on it. I'll share the link with you, and if you're interested in the story of this young man whose family just settled with the LA County Sheriff's Department. I'll share this link with you. And so again, just another, it's another reason why I'm kind of discombobulated, because it's just another example of, police agencies willing to throw buckets of money at families. They'll kill our kids, they'll kill our husbands, our sisters, our mothers, our grandmothers, and then they just throw buckets of money at the family. So just, it's a lot. It's a lot. In Illinois right now, for those of you who are there and don't know this, understand, because they just quietly, it says they quietly passed a law that says recording a police officer in Illinois is a felony, you guys. So for those of you who know your rights and like to assert them, be careful in Illinois, because this law has something to do with a police officer's reasonable right to privacy, an expectation of privacy, and you recording them somehow violates that. It's kind of vague and weird and funky, but it's a law. And while you guys were sleeping over there in Illinois, I don't know who was responsible for it, but it passed. It passed, and it's law. And so if you are, recording a police officer who's involved in some kind of a encounter, detention, arrest, use of force, and they see you recording them, they will arrest you for felony. So just know that and be careful, and make sure that you don't wind up on the back end of some kind of use of force, or more importantly, make sure that your family isn't dealing with a deadly use of force because you are recording the police in Illinois. It's a felony. So just wanted to talk a little bit about someone who reached out to me, and I'm just going to share this because a lot of times I think when we don't know what to do, we wait too long and we kind of miss an opportunity. And so I had a Facebook family member, and I'm not going to mention a name, but I had a Facebook family member reach out to me about a personal matter involving a young man who had been put out of school, put in a continuation school, kicked out of regular school, put in continuation, and now is being threatened with not being able to walk to graduate with his class. And so my advice then and my advice now is, first of all, as a parent, I'm real big on advocating for your children. I have always, my sons grew up knowing that, if a teacher says, I'm going to call your mother, they would say, please and thank you. Because they understand what happens when I show up. And so they were never concerned when a teacher threatened to call their parent. But, don't wait till the last minute, or don't hesitate to advocate for your children and speak up on behalf of your children, because just because an administrator says that your child did a thing doesn't necessarily mean that that thing is true. And somehow, because by the mere fact that they are an adult, their words have more potency than your child should. And so while, I taught my children to be respectful, but I let them know that I was always willing to come and do verbal judo, if you will, on behalf of them, given that they were not misbehaving and that they were right in their stance. Then I would argue for them, because now this young man, it's probably days before graduation, and, trying to get some representation or get someone else involved at this point may be a little bit too late. So pay attention to what's going on with your children. And don't be afraid to advocate on behalf of them and stand in the gap for your children with these adult administrators, because, my own personal experience with my son being where I live in the suburbs and dealing with predominantly white female administrators, they were seemingly always willing to want to label my sons a certain way, and I wasn't here for that. So, yeah, speak out for your children, stand up for your children. It's important that they see you do that, and they know that you're there for them. Also, I wanted to share with you over in Texas right now, I think it was last year that this woman went to prison for 5 years for voting. And so folks over in Texas are asking that you contact and support the American Civil Liberties Union and the Texas Civil Rights Project, because they are looking to help Crystal Mason is the woman's name. Crystal Mason. She was, I think, out on some kind of a summary probation or something. And during the last election, she did not know that because of her status, she wasn't able to vote. And so she did. But somehow her vote didn't count because it was provisional or something. I don't know all the details, but I'm going to share the story and the link with you, and you can research it. Because listen, don't just listen to what I say. You know, I have people, you guys are funny. I'll put something up on Facebook. I'll put an article, and I think I did this about Steve Harvey, you know, how his shows were getting canceled, and I don't know who he pissed off, and that's a whole nother story. But I put the article about his show being canceled, and then them replacing him on Little Big Shots with Melissa McCarthy, I think is the lady that's going to be replacing him on that. And then somebody asked me, what happened? Really? What happened? How about you read the article and find out what happened? So listen, don't be sheeple. Don't just take my word. Check this stuff out and know for yourself. So when you repeat it, when you tell somebody, because I hope you share all of what you hear, when you repeat it, you'll be able to speak from a position of, I know what I'm talking about, right? So take a look at the article that I just shared with you regarding the Civil Liberties Union, American Civil Liberties Union, and the Texas Civil Rights Project. They are working feverishly along with my sister girl over there, attorney Kim T. Cole, to try to see what they could do to help Crystal Mason and see if they can do something to get her off this 5-year federal, I believe, stint that she is in the midst of fulfilling. So listen, if it were you, if it were your family, you know, it's not a problem, right? Until it's a problem for you. So let's, you know, look at what's going on to our fellow mankind, womankind, if you will, and let's be our brother's keeper, let's be our sister's keeper, and let's, if nothing else, just an email, a text message to an administrator, a tweet to someone in a position of authority. It might make a difference. I talked a little bit about this before, and I'll just real quick, John Singleton, it's been reported now that I guess he did have a will. I think I said this, well, I know I talked about it on my podcast, but I'll say this again here. It was reported at first he didn't have a will, then they found out that he did have a will, but the will was outdated because when he first got it, he only had one child, and so everything was left to his oldest child, I believe a daughter, his oldest daughter, but there are, I think, 6 other children who, because they weren't excluded from the will, and they weren't excluded because they didn't exist, but because they weren't excluded, of course, they're his children, and so they have a right, and so there could still yet be a fight. Handle your business. Handle your business. Nipsey Hussle, same thing. It's reported that there was no will, and now his brother, Black Sam, that's what he calls himself. I'm not calling him Black Sam. But Black Sam is trying to become executor of Nipsey's estate because there are some business things that are going on, and I think that there are people that are using Nipsey Hussle's image and other stuff that Black Sam would like to speak to, and he can't unless he's executor of his estate. So he's working to try to get that done, and I don't know if he's going to be successful. And then, of course, you know, the sister is trying to get custody of the daughter, and the mom said, when we go to court, I will be there because that's my daughter, I would imagine. I don't think that mess is even close to being over. And then it's been reported that the store, Marathon Clothing Store, has closed its doors. I'm not surprised because what I believe is that Nipsey Hussle was a visionary, and you know, there's only probably like one Nipsey, like there's one Tupac, right? One Biggie, one Prince. It's very difficult to step in the shoes of somebody who's, you know, genius like that and just pick right up and things just take right off. And so right now it's been reported that the store has closed its doors for now, air quote, right? Because I don't know that those doors are going to open again. And I'm just wondering what's going to happen to that whole corner. Is there anybody who can make sure that that whole corner remains viable? We'll see. In other celebrity news, if you will, R. Kelly is back in the news. You know, he was supposed to go to court a few weeks ago and he didn't go to court. on one of the charges by a female who alleged that he had been involved in unwanted sex with her or something. And so the judge rendered a verdict in favor of this young woman because of default, because R. Kelly didn't show up. And so now he has said through his attorneys that the reason he missed the court date, but listen, his PR guy said, nobody got time for court. Who's going to court? You know, nobody care about no court date. That's what his PR guy said. And and then somebody probably grabbed him by the nape of his neck and said, sit down, sir. So now his attorneys are saying, no, really, Your Honor, he didn't come to court because he can't read. And he was in jail when he was served. I don't mean to laugh, but he was in jail when he was served the paperwork and he couldn't read it, so he didn't know. But I'm thinking, dude, really? I get you can't read, but I know your attorney can, right? Because now they're representing you and they're putting forth this thing that you can't read. So either somebody been reading to you all your 52 years, somebody been reading to you, or something, or you've been reading it yourself. I don't know. But I think what happened, and to be fair, to err on the side of caution, and I'll just share the story for those of you who want to be messy. I think the judge just said, you know what, to be fair, I'm going to go ahead and throw out that default judgment, and I'm going to give you an opportunity, Mr. Kelly, to answer to these charges. And you know, that's fair. That's fair. Everybody is deserving of due process and a right to be heard and have their day in court. And so it sounds like R will. But I just find it, you know, not funny, ha, but after that whole thing with Gayle King on, you know, on TV, how he was carrying on and crying and snotting, and, you know, he can figure out everything else and he could talk a heap of, you know what, a heap of mess about everything else, but now all of a sudden it's, I can't read, you know, somehow I should get a pass. Anyway, that's that. One more thing before I go, I just need 2 or 3 of you to stand in agreement with me. I can hardly contain myself, and I don't want to say too much, but I have been participating in a kind of an interview process, if you will, for a TV show. And I made it past the first stage, and now there is going to be on next week, Thursday, a chemistry interview, if you will. It'll be myself and 2 other participants in this TV show that's going to air on a network that I'm not going to mention, but I'm feeling really good about it, and I am just wired for sound. So I just need 2 or 3 of you to stand in agreement with me, and I'm hoping in a couple of weeks I'll be able to come back and report some good news to you about this TV show that is going to be airing, and yours truly may be a part of it. So please do think good thoughts for the warrior queen, the lioness, Sergeant Dorsey, and I'll let you know when I can what happens with that. So I appreciate you guys for stopping by and commenting. I see some of your comments, you know, when they show up, I think there's a delay. So, hey, Sean, I'm seeing you right now. Good evening. If I don't say anything to you, hey, Aaron, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because hey, Monica, the comment showed up a little bit late. So anyway, that's it for now, you guys. I think I'm gonna have a cocktail or something. I'm gonna open up a bottle of somebody's red wine, white wine, and just kind of bring it down. This has been a difficult last few days with all this going on, and I believe that these police shootings they feel like they're cyclical. We're in a cycle right now. I hope this is it. I hope Miss Pamela Turner was the last for a bit, so that when next we meet, you know, I'll be, you know, maybe just updating you on some things that have been ongoing and not really reporting to you on anything new. So listen, you guys, I appreciate you. My YouTube subbies, thank you so much. You know, I love you guys, right? Share, subscribe, tell a friend, like, follow, visit my website, sergeantsgtcheryldorsey.com. Check out my autobiography, which is in the background. Black and Blue, The Creation of a Social Advocate, on my website. You can read the first chapter. You can also read the first chapter of my soon-to-be-released book after my court trial with LAUSD, Black and Blue, The Creation of a Whistleblower, for those of you who may be dealing with some issues at work. I don't know why folks like to mess with me, but anyway, I seem to have a variety of things that I can talk to you about because I've been the victim of, right? Every ism that you could think of, they tried it. Sexism, racism, reverse racism, discrimination. Yeah, but you know, I'm honorary. And so remember I said, if you told me no, then I must. So I have words of encouragement, words of wisdom, and some things that might be helpful if you too find yourself similarly situated. So until next week, you guys, you know what's up. Be good. Be safe.